An AI just ran the first ever genetic report on King Henry VIII. The results are shaking up history. Scientists used DNA from a lost artifact, and what they uncovered is staggering. We're not talking about syphilis. The truth is much stranger. The AI found a genetic marker for his legendary rage. It also found a blood condition that sealed the fate of Anne Boleyn. The king's body was a prison, and we finally have the proof. The Lost Artifacts Bombshell. King Henry VIII. When you hear the name, you probably picture one person, a huge 400-pound man, draped in fur, holding a turkey leg, and shouting, "Off with her head!" He's the ultimate historical bad guy, the man who had 6 wives, removed 2 of them, and broke with an entire church just to get his way. For centuries, historians and doctors have tried to figure out what was wrong with him. What made him turn from a handsome, athletic prince, the golden boy of Europe, into a paranoid, raging tyrant? The theories have been wild. Everyone's obsessed with the idea he had syphilis. Others say it was type 2 diabetes or a nasty leg wound that got infected. But here's the catch. It was all guesswork. We were looking at a 500-year-old mystery with no new clues until now. In a lab at Cambridge, a team of researchers just did the impossible. They used a new, powerful artificial intelligence to decode the DNA of King Henry VIII. And what they found inside his body is more shocking than anyone could have imagined. This isn't just a small update to a history book. This is a complete rewrite. So, here's the deal. How do you get DNA from a king who passed on in 1547? His body is buried in a vault under St. George's Chapel. You can't just open it up. The crazy part is they didn't need to. For decades, a small leather-bound prayer book, known to belong to the king, was sitting in a private collection. It was sealed in an airtight box, forgotten. When researchers were allowed to study it, they found something incredible pressed between the pages, a tiny lock of reddish hair, and even better, a small flake of what looked like dried skin. The DNA was in terrible shape. It was fragmented, broken, and tiny. But that's where the AI comes in. This new system, which some are calling histogenome, doesn't need a perfect sample. It takes thousands of tiny genetic fragments, and, like putting together the world's most complicated puzzle, it models the entire genetic code. It can spot mutations, identify risk factors, and even predict what conditions a person likely had. The team ran the code, and the first bombshell dropped immediately. For 500 years, the #1 theory for Henry's madness was syphilis. It was the easy answer. It caused paranoia, lesions, and brain damage. It would explain everything. The AI ran the check. The result? Completely negative. 0 markers. The biggest theory about Henry, the one everyone took for granted, was wrong. But the AI wasn't done. It flagged something else. A series of genetic markers that pointed not to a common illness, but to a rare, terrifying condition that perfectly explains his transformation from hero to monster. What most people don't realize is that Henry's body wasn't just sick, it was a genetic prison. The AI didn't just clear him of one thing, it accused him of something so much stranger. But that wasn't even the biggest shock. The AI found something else, a secret in his blood. The McLeod syndrome secret. The AI's first big find was the one historians had been hunting for, the source of his rage. We all know the story. Young Henry was a star. He was 6'2", an amazing athlete, a musician, and a genius. He was loved. Then in 1536, everything changed. During a jousting tournament, he had a terrible fall. A horse fell on him. He was unconscious for 2 whole hours. When he woke up, he was a different man. He became paranoid, angry, and cruel. For years, people blamed the head injury, but the AI suggests that injury was just the trigger for a bomb that was already hiding in his genes. The AI flagged markers for a rare, devastating condition called McLeod syndrome. Yeah, about that. Most people have never heard of it, but it fits Henry perfectly. It's a genetic disorder that usually hits men in middle age. And, get this, it attacks the brain and nervous system. It causes huge changes in personality. We're talking paranoia, irritability, and sudden violent bouts of rage. It also causes muscle weakness and nerve issues. Suddenly, the king's final years make sense. The paranoia that made him see traitors everywhere. The rage that sent friends and wives to their end. It wasn't just a bad temper, it may have been a disease eating away at his mind. And the crazy part is, it also explains his body. McLeod syndrome often leads to severe leg weakness and poor circulation. What was Henry's most famous complaint? His weeping, stinking leg ulcers. For years, doctors thought they were from the jousting accident or diabetes, but the AI model suggests it was this neurological disorder making his legs weak and his veins fail. He was a man in constant agonizing pain, his 52-inch waist, his 400-pound body. He couldn't joust, he couldn't hunt, he couldn't even walk. He had to be carried around in a special chair. The AI model shows that this genetic condition, lit on fire by the jousting accident, created a perfect storm. He was a prisoner in a body that was failing him, while his mind was being hijacked by a disease nobody knew existed. This changes everything. Was he a monster? Or was he a victim of a genetic lottery, trapped inside a collapsing body, in a mind that was no longer his own? The AI suggests the man we thought was a tyrant was actually a patient, but his brain was only half the story. The AI found another secret in his blood. The genetic reason for 6 wives. King Henry's whole life was about one thing: getting a healthy son. He needed an heir to secure the Tudor line. He broke with the Catholic Church. He tore the country apart. He went through 6 wives, all for a son. He had daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, who were healthy. He had one son, Edward, who was sickly and passed on young. But what about all the others? His wives, Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn, suffered through a heartbreaking string of miscarriages, stillbirths, and babies who perished just days after birth. At the time, everyone blamed the wives. It was their fault. They were cursed. But the AI just proved the curse was coming from Henry himself. This is the second bombshell. The AI sequenced Henry's blood-typing genes, and it found a rare marker. Henry was Kell positive. So here's the deal. What does that mean? It's a blood group like A, B, or O, but it's less common, and it's a huge problem for pregnancy. If a father is Kell positive, like Henry, and the mother is Kell negative, which most people are, here's what happens. The first baby might be fine, but during that first pregnancy, the mother's body is exposed to the baby's Kell positive blood. Her immune system sees it as an invader, so she builds up defenses, antibodies. The next time she gets pregnant with another Kell positive baby, her own body attacks it. It's a terrible condition. It leads to miscarriages, stillbirths, or babies who are born very, very sick. This matches Henry's life perfectly. Catherine of Aragon. Her first child, a son, perished after just 52 days. After that, a string of heartbreaking losses. Anne Boleyn. Her first child, Elizabeth, was a healthy girl. The next, a miscarriage. Then another. This wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a curse. It was a genetic certainty. Henry's own blood was dooming his quest for an heir before it even began. What most people don't realize is that Henry's obsession with the son wasn't just ambition, it was a race against his own biology. He kept changing wives, thinking they were the problem, but the problem was in his own DNA the entire time. The AI model reframes his entire life. The man who changed the world, who tore down the church, who removed 2 wives. He was just a father, trapped by a genetic secret he could never have understood. And that's putting it lightly. The AI pieced together his body, but it also found a third shocking condition, the king's shocking autopsy. So the AI had given us 2 wow factors: a neurological disorder, McLeod syndrome, that made him a tyrant, and a blood disorder, Kell positive, that made him a bad husband. But what about the most famous part of all? The body. How did a man who was once the most handsome, athletic prince in Europe turn into a 400-pound monster? We all assumed it was gluttony. And let's be real, his diet was insane. We're talking 5,000 calories a day, mostly red meat, doused in ale and wine, a non-stop feast. But here's the thing, plenty of kings ate like that. Was a sign of power, of wealth. None of them swelled up like Henry. None of them became a living, breathing wreck. There had to be something else. The AI put all the pieces together. The diet, the mood, the weakness, the sheer size of the man. And it found a third final diagnosis, one that ties everything together. The AI model suggests Henry also had Cushing's syndrome. This is the big one. This is the key. Basically, Cushing's is what happens when your body is flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone. It's like being in a non-stop life-or-death panic for years. And get this, look at the symptoms. First, rapid weight gain, but not normal weight gain. It specifically attacks the torso and the face. Historians have always talked about Henry's famous moon face. That's a textbook sign of Cushing's. He also would have developed what doctors call a buffalo hump, a large mass of fat on his upper back. His arms and legs would have looked thin and weak in comparison. It's a bizarre, alien-looking transformation. Second, the body itself breaks down. Cushing's gives you thin, fragile skin that bruises and tears at the slightest touch. It causes severe muscle weakness. Remember how Henry was a jousting champion. In his final years, he couldn't even stand. He had to be winched onto his horse like a piece of cargo. And third, the mind. The high tide of cortisol causes severe mood swings, paranoia, anxiety, and psychosis. It's the missing piece of the puzzle. The McLeod syndrome started the brain problems, making him suspicious. The Kell-positive gene destroyed his family life, making him desperate. And the Cushing's destroyed his body and finished off his mind. The AI that rewrites the past. So where did the Cushing's come from? You don't just get it. The AI model has a theory. It links back to that one single event that changed everything, the jousting accident in 1536. We all know the story. Henry, in full armor, took a fall. He was unconscious for 2 hours. Historians always focused on the concussion, but the AI suggests the fall didn't just rattle his brain. It may have damaged his pituitary gland. This is a tiny pea-sized gland in the brain, but it's the master gland. It controls all the body's hormones. Once it was damaged, the AI model shows it just broke. It started pumping out stress hormones nonstop 24/7 for the last 10 years of his life. But the AI suggests it's even worse than that. That fall in 1536, it didn't just give him a concussion and break his hormone system. It's the source of his most famous injury, his rotting leg ulcers. For centuries, people assumed these were from syphilis, but the AI model ran the data. And it has a different theory. It suggests that jousting fall caused a deep, brutal fracture in his leg. The wound never healed. Why? Because the Cushing's syndrome was also causing undiagnosed type 2 diabetes. His blood was thick with sugar. It's the worst possible environment for healing. So the wound didn't just fester, it got infected. The AI proposes a fourth diagnosis, chronic osteomyelitis. This isn't just a skin ulcer, this is a bone infection, a deep, rotting, agonizing infection. Servants reported that the smell from the king's leg could be noticed rooms away. This is a man living with a non-stop raging septic infection inside his own skeleton. Think about what that does to a person. The constant searing pain, day after day, year after year. The AI suggests this created a medical feedback loop from hell. The bone infection caused blinding pain. The pain made his body release even more cortisol. And the cortisol made the Cushing's worse. The worse the Cushing's got, the worse the diabetes got. And the worse the diabetes got, the worse the leg infection got. He was trapped in a spiral of pain and hormonal rage. And this AI model, it even offers a wilder theory, one that old historians would never dare to touch. It asks a simple question: was the jousting accident an accident at all? Think about the timing. January 1536. Henry falls. He is badly injured. At that exact moment, his wife, Anne Boleyn, miscarries a son. She blames the miscarriage on the shock of seeing his accident. 4 months later, in May 1536, Anne Boleyn is executed. The AI model flags this as a statistical anomaly. The timing is too perfect. The fall didn't just destroy Henry's health, it directly led to the downfall of his most famous wife. The AI can't prove it, but it suggests we should be looking at who benefited from that fall. Who wanted Anne gone? Who wanted to clear the way for the next wife, Jane Seymour? Was his horse tampered with? Was his armor sabotaged? We may never know, but the AI is telling us to look again. The verdict on a king, monster, or medical case. Let's truly recap this house of horrors, this 5-part nightmare that was the king's own body. To understand the man, you have to understand the torment. 1. We have a neurological patient, a man whose brain was, quite literally, betraying him. He had McLeod syndrome, a rare, terrifying brain disorder. This wasn't just being in a bad mood. This was a degenerative condition that sparked paranoia, muscle weakness, and sudden, uncontrollable, violent rages. He was a prisoner in his own mind, watching his personality be stolen from him day by day, seeing enemies and traitors in every shadow. 2. We have a man with a cursed blood type. He was Kell positive, a rare genetic disorder. This invisible enemy waged war on his one great desire, a male heir. This condition meant his own body produced antibodies that would attack and kill his own unborn children, especially sons. Imagine the psychological torture, every pregnancy announcement, every hope turning to grief and ash. His own blood was murdering his children. 3. We have a hormonal wreck. That one jousting accident, the one history remembers, likely triggered Cushing's syndrome. This flooded his body with a toxic, non-stop wave of the stress hormone cortisol. It made him obese, blowing his body up to an unrecognizable state. It gave him the famous moon face, stretched his skin until it was thin as paper, and, most importantly, it sent him on a chemical roller coaster. He was moody, manic, and depressive, swinging from bouts of tears to fits of unbridled, godlike rage. 4. We have a man in constant, agonizing pain. He had osteomyelitis, a deep septic bone infection in his leg. This wasn't just a limp. This was a rotting, open, festering wound that never, ever healed. We're talking about a smell of decay that filled the room, a wound that surgeons would have to cauterize with hot irons. He lived every single day with the raw, white-hot nerve of agony. It's no wonder he was paranoid. The pain alone would drive any man mad. 5. And finally, tying it all together, we have a diabetic patient. He had full-blown type 2 diabetes, almost certainly caused by the diet and supercharged by the Cushing's syndrome. His blood had turned to a thick sugar sludge, poisoning his system from the inside out. This is why the wound in his leg couldn't heal. This is why his body was failing. It's not a miracle he lived to be 55. It's a miracle he made it to 40. This paints a gruesome, horrifying picture of his final days. The king's body was a total system failure, a walking biohazard, a fortress of disease. And here is the most shocking fact of all. This one isn't a theory. This one is true. When King Henry VIII passed on, his body was massive. 400 pounds of diseased, failing flesh. He was a man who had been at war with his own biology his entire life, and he had finally lost. They put him in a huge, custom-built, lead-lined coffin designed to contain the remains of a king. The royal procession began its slow, solemn journey to his final resting place. On the way to his burial, the procession stopped overnight to rest at Sion Abbey. Picture the scene. The Great Hall is silent. The king's massive sealed coffin lies in state, guarded by attendants, and in the dead of the night, they are jolted awake by a sound, a massive, sudden bang. They rush in, torches high, to a scene from a nightmare. The coffin had exploded. The lead seals meant to contain the king had burst open. The pressure from all the built-up gases inside his septic body had become a biological time bomb. It was a horrifying, disgusting scene. It was reported that dogs, drawn by the smell, broke into the abbey and were seen licking the king's remains off the cold stone floor. For 5 centuries, historians and storytellers have seen this as a grim, weird detail, a final grotesque insult from God, a symbolic, supernatural end for a king who had defied the heavens. But the AI model explains exactly why this happened. It wasn't a curse. It was a symptom. The Cushing's, the diabetes, the raging, unchecked infection. His body was already decomposing before he died. It was a perfect storm of bacteria and gas, a septic tank waiting to blow. The explosion wasn't a divine judgment. It was the final, awful, and predictable symptom of a body that had been at war with itself for decades. This brings us to the verdict of history, monster or medical case. This AI model suggests Henry wasn't one sick man. He was 5 sick men, all trapped in one decaying body. A neurological patient, a man with a tragic blood disorder, a victim of a hormonal storm, a man in 24/7 agony, and a diabetic. So what does this all mean? For 500 years, King Henry VIII has been the ultimate villain, the monster, the tyrant, the obese, food-obsessed brute who ate his way through England and 6 wives. He is the cartoon villain of history. But this new AI-driven discovery changes the entire story. It doesn't just add a new chapter, it forces us to reread the entire book. The AI just decoded his DNA, his medical records, and the secret patterns of his life. And in doing so, it may have decoded the man himself. The man we thought was a monster was, according to this new data, one of the most complex and one of the sickest medical cases in all of history. Think about it. A brain disorder stealing his personality, a blood disorder stealing his children, a hormonal disorder stealing his body, a bone infection stealing his sanity. This forces us to ask the big question: how much of his tyranny was him, and how much was his illness? When he ordered the brutal, shocking end of Anne Boleyn, was it the cold, calculated move of a king? Or was it a fit of sudden, uncontrollable paranoia, a literal symptom of the MacLeod syndrome telling him his wife was a traitor? When he dissolved the monasteries in a fit of terrifying rage, was it a genius political shakedown to seize their wealth? Or was it the textbook definition of Cushing's-induced mania, a pathological, irrational storm that he was powerless to stop? When he lashed out at his servants, was it the tyrant speaking? Or was it the raw, white-hot, 24/7 agony of that rotting bone infection, a pain so intense it would make anyone lash out at the world? When he ate 5,000 calories in one sitting, was it gluttony and greed? Or was it the uncontrollable pathological hunger triggered by the sky-high cortisol and insulin in his blood, his body screaming for energy it couldn't even use? Was Henry framed by his DNA? This is the big question. People watching this are probably wondering, does this excuse him? Does it mean he's not responsible for his actions? The answer is not that simple. The people he had removed are still gone. The damage he did to the country is still real. The churches he destroyed, the wives he discarded, the men he executed, that all happened. This isn't about excusing him or letting him off the hook, but what the AI has done is give us context. It shows us that the line between monster and medical patient can be incredibly, terrifyingly thin. It's a chilling reminder that we are all, in the end, at the mercy of our own biology. We are all just a collection of chemicals, hormones, and electrical signals. We are a complex symphony, and if one of those instruments breaks, if one section starts to play the wrong note, the entire song changes. This breakthrough is bigger than just one king. This AI technology is just getting started. If it can do this for Henry, who's next? What about Richard III? Was he really the hunchbacked, child-murdering killer that Shakespeare wrote about? Or was he a man with severe scoliosis, slandered by his Tudor enemies, his reputation poisoned for centuries? What about Mad King George, the king who lost America? The AI is already looking at his case, suggesting it wasn't madness at all, but a rare genetic blood disorder called porphyria, which can cause hallucinations, paranoia, and intense pain. So what do you think? Was Henry a medical tragedy or just a monster? Does this new AI data change anything about his legacy? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more secrets from the past.